Ladies and gentlemen, Healthy Heart Hospital has received a makeover. Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon. Today we are taking a look at the third edition of Healthy Heart Hospital. So, yes, there was actually two editions of what most people know as Healthy Heart Hospital. The biggest difference, we're just going to, get this out of the way, talk about the elephant in the room, is the artwork. Just right off the bat, artwork is much more friendlier, almost. Not that the artwork was bad, but it was very realistic in the original game, and it had this like older 70s feel to it. It just did not look like something you wanted to pick up and play. Artwork here is much better. I get this like ER vibe from a lot of it, which I think will resonate with a lot of people. Something else they've also done is reduced the amount of components in the game. So there's no longer any ambulance cards. Pretty much, or just not pretty much, but each turn you're just going to add 6 cubes to each waiting room instead of flipping over an ambulance card for each side. There's no longer a prestige track that determines when staff are going to become available for hire. Basically every round you're just going to flip over 2. You've got 4 special abilities here in the boardroom, or you can draw from the pile. Also, there used to be a ton of tokens for the individuals in the bed, and there was a whole bunch of 1s, a whole bunch of 2s, a whole bunch of 3s. Now everything is all on this single token here, and you just rotate it around, and whatever is pointing to the EKG symbol, you'll see that that number is actually facing you correctly. So there's still a lot of cubes, but they have finally given you a bag. So you used to always see videos of playing Healthy Heart Hospital with their coffee mug or whatever, but they've given us a nice bag here for drawing purposes. And those are the big ones that I have noticed. They've streamlined some of the rules. Like I said, you're just adding 6 cubes to the waiting room each time instead of varying that up. You only are dealing with the ward abilities during the patient phase, when you go in and you check everybody's beds and people might get sicker. Otherwise, none of these come into account when you are attempting to heal them. They've also just said, all right, at the beginning of the game, give yourself a room. So like right off the bat, we could start with the emergency room, and every round we're going to add a new room. We don't have to buy them. You do have to pay to upgrade them, but you don't have to buy them. Pretty much the only thing you have to buy in this game is new staff. So I don't quite remember what the money was, how you passed out money or lost money when people died, but I'm assuming they've kind of toned it down a little bit here. But also, depending on your player count here, you start with various levels of money. This game is very easy to play solo, even though you do have to somewhat play two-handed. You just have to play with 2 doctors. It's not even almost two-handed. It doesn't feel two-handed. But 2 doctors, and you always have 1 administrator. Depending on the player count, you're going to have a certain number of these various tokens, which give you actions during the game. Something that they did have in the original Healthy Heart Hospital that they carried over and just kind of added to are a lot of the funny names, I guess you could say. So, Dr. Smiles here, Camilla cut me off, Doctor, but where is Dr. Lucky? Like this is a much more pleasant image to look at than the original Dr. Lucker. You're a scapegoat, Bella Virus, where is... I cannot help but think that this is the chick from Big Bang Theory when I see that. Dr. Dream. Which I think there was a Dr. Dream in the other one, but I just think it's hilarious that this guy definitely looks like him. And this girl, I didn't watch ER that much, but and this guy looks like Doctor Strange to me. I feel like he should be Doctor Strange. Anyways. So that is some of the new changes that they've made to the third edition, on top of, like I said, the biggest thing being a change in artwork, which I think this game needed. Now when people see it on the shelf, they might actually pick it up and flip it over. I think before, people would see it on the shelf and they might be like, how old is this game? How long has it been out? And not realize that it's, only been out, however many years. But I think it had that like old school retro, like they've been coming out with Retro Life, Retro Battleship, had that kind of look to it. And I was personally not a fan. So in Healthy Heart Hospital, you are attempting to, you've taken over this hospital, the Healthy Heart Hospital, and you are now the doctors and administration that's taken over this hospital that's kind of fallen into disarray. People are still needing to come to you, but you need to survive 6 rounds and still have a profit. Right now we have $15 to our name. At the end of 6 rounds, as long as we still have $1 to our name, we are victorious. There's various levels of how much money you ended up with in the rule book that says how good of a job you did, but essentially the name of the game is to cooperatively survive 6 rounds. There's 2 ways to lose. You can ever lose all your money, hit 0 money, or if you have filled up your cemetery here, which they call hiding the bodies. I don't know whether that's the best term or not, but anyways, you start off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plots within your cemetery that you can fill up. You can open 2 additional ones up by having Dr. Lucky or the coroner, which, right now I don't have Dr. Lucky, so I really could only ever have a 6th spot. So we don't want people to die and we don't want to lose money. As long as we can successfully ride the waves through 6 rounds, we are successful. So at the beginning of every round, or not the beginning, I guess technically the end of every round, during the patient phase, we're going to have more people come in to the emergency room, or to the waiting room. Our emergency room is here in case one of these spots fills up. So there's 2 waiting rooms on this board. They are both in a horizontal row. It used to be there was one on this side and one on this side. So we're just going to pick out here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the black cubes are the evil cubes. They mean that for every black cube you draw, you have to dip into the bag and draw 2 more. So in this example, we would have a level 3 internal medicine patient. I don't really know what that means. We would have a level 1 infectious disease person, so somebody with a cold. A level 2 trauma person, so maybe they need stitches. We need level 1 cardiology, somebody with racing blood pressure, and a level 1 psychiatric patient. I'm not going to go through all of the rest of these. These will go off to the side into a discard pile. And so those are out of the bag. This is not a bag builder. You're always going to be using these same cubes. But what you can do during this game is always peek inside your bag to see what's in there, what's the contents that are in there. You just can't look while you're drawing the cubes out of the bag. So that's an interesting rule that not very many games have. Usually it's you can't peek in the bag at all. Some allow you to feel the bag to see or reach your hand in and count how many tokens you have left, things like that. But this one allows you to look in anytime you want, as long as you're not drawing. So these guys represent patients, where if this guy ended up here, he would be a level 3 just like these guys. This guy would just be a 1, so he probably would be easy to heal. But in the waiting room, we don't treat patients in the waiting room. We got to get them up here into one of these beds, and then we have to treat them. So the main actions of the game are taken by your doctors here, and each doctor, say in a 2-player game, gets 4 actions. You flip over these tokens, and your main action is going to be attempt to heal a patient. So you're going to go to one of these various wards. You're going to pick a patient. You're going to say, all right, I want to attempt to heal this patient. Now, some people have bonuses. For example, Dr. Know-It's-All gets +2 cubes to heal a psychiatric patient. So if he were to go to this ward instead of drawing 6 cubes, he would get to draw 8. What's nice though is he can draw the 6, see what his outcomes are, and then decide to draw the 2. When you are attempting to heal a patient, you're still going to dip in here. You're going to pull out whatever number you are trying to hit on. And unfortunately, this is one of my few negatives of the game, is that the blues and the gray cubes look too similar. Unfortunately, we only hit on 1, but that's 1 success, essentially. If, however, we had drawn a black, any black cancels out one of the colors that you're trying to match. So we're trying to match this color. These colors don't matter. Doesn't matter. They're just pulled and they're just dead weight. But since I only drew 1, I could heal this guy down to a 2. Since I healed him, you can see here the heart symbol represents anytime you heal somebody, I would gain $1. Or I could then say, all right, Dr. Nowitz, let's try for 2 more. And we would draw 2 more and we would miss. But that's fine. That's one of his turns. He can continue bouncing around from ward to ward. Sometimes they allow you to rebag cubes. So in this instance, maybe he's going to move over here to green. So he's going to rebag these 2 greens. Otherwise, the cubes go over here and are not put back in until the beginning of the next round. The only other action a doctor can take is to move a patient. Now he can take a patient from the waiting room. They have to be at a level 3 or 4 though, which is interesting. Essentially, patients are going to sit in the waiting room until they get sick enough to have to enter the hospital. But you could take this guy, you could spend an action and move this fella here. These 3 cubes represent a single person. These get discarded, and then a level 3 green one goes right there. But now at this point, we can't take any more internal medicine patients because all our beds are full. So we better address this. But that's part of the game. As you add new rooms into the game, you can also move people from, sometimes directly from the waiting room, for example, into the emergency room, or you can move people into one of the wards into a new room. For example, let's find one here that would make sense. Pharmacy, more. Here we go. Here is psychiatric. So say our next room that we decide we get to choose is the psychiatric ward, because we want to take care of these patients. I could spend an action as a doctor to move this patient over to here. He's going to sit on the critical side. There's 2 sides here, this little pill shape. He's going to sit over here because if we don't address him now that he's in the psychiatric treatment room, he's going to perish. He has to get some attention. But you'll notice that right off the bat, he gets 8 cubes for being in this room. If Dr. Nowitz was adding to that, we would make it 10. So, and you also get more of a benefit every time you heal them a step in the psych ward here, or psychiatric treatment room. Anytime you are able to heal them even just 1 spot, you would move them over to treated, and they do not die at the end of the round. They would slide back over here though, continuing to need attention. But again, I could spend another token here to move them back into a bed. You can't ever kick them out into the waiting room. That just doesn't make sense. If at any point you ever reach a person where they have reached 5 cubes, or they have reached 5 on here, they have perished. So unfortunately, you are either going to take this token and cover up the cemetery, which means you can't take your ability to take on more psychiatric patients has lessened. Your hospital can't take on as many psychiatric patients. However, if they're down here in the waiting room and you go to add, say, 4 more cubes to this and he can't take it, you would add just one of these cemetery tokens like that. So that's what those are for. However, rooms like the emergency room could save you. If you went to fill this up to 5 and you had room in your emergency room, you only have 1 bay in your emergency room. It's a tiny hospital. You could move those 5 cubes over to here, but you better do something with them. You better try and heal them. You don't have very many cubes, heal them down to 3 or 4, and then move them into a bed. So, and in this instance, you're actually moving the cubes. So each of the rooms acts a little differently, and there's a nice variety of rooms here, like blood bank, break room, canteen, cardiology, extended care facility, the freezer, the hallway. So all of these work in different ways, but internal medicine, pharmacy, trauma, there's usually one of these that helps out with specific types of patients. All of them, however, have a white border side and a black bordered side, which you can pay to upgrade the room, making it even better. So you get the room for free, you have to pay to upgrade it. So those are the 2 actions, and only 2 actions you have to worry about with your doctor. Again, this game is very straightforward and very simple, but there's a lot of crunchy decisions and ebbs and flows, which make it feel stressful enough to still be fun, but makes it feel like a hospital. Then we've got our administrator over here. The administrator passes turn around from player to player. So everybody will get a turn to play as the administrator and take their 2 actions. The administrators can do things like hire new staff. So as we move along the round marker, more of these staff will be revealed, and we can hire them, add them over here to hired staff. Sometimes it's an instant benefit, sometimes it's an ongoing benefit. Or we can send a doctor to train. Essentially, you go to the board, you say, I want to train up this doctor, and you would pick one of these and give it to one of the doctors. The last thing that a administrator can do is research. So there's this whole big deck of research cards here, and you're going to take one, you're going to flip it over, and then you're going to draw a certain number of cubes. This one here says draw 5 cubes, and then choose from the following. So let's go back to our bag here real quick. Draw out 5 cubes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a great example because we drew 3 yellow cubes. That's a really good amount of one color, but there is no yellow option on this particular research card. There probably is somewhere in the deck, but we can't even use these. They're wasted and they're going to go to the discard pile. We do have 2 red cubes, so luckily we didn't completely miss on our research. We can discard red cube, illness level 1 cube patients. So, and cube patients would be these guys down here versus token patients. So that's how research works. It helps, makes things easier, helps address the problems that are going on in your hospital, and it gives our administrators something to do. Also, most of them have an action that they can take where you would take it and you would flip the card over. So it's like a one-time use action, usually either once per game or once per round, and it lets you know down there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very quick overview. It wasn't super quick, but relatively quick overview of Healthy Heart Hospital and how you play it. So let's talk about just briefly what my thoughts are on this game. First of all, I want to talk about components. Obviously, we've already discussed the elephant in the room. The art is so much better. The card quality is good. The tokens are fine. I like that there is just not a ton of tokens you need to worry about. I love the fact that they give you a bag. Everybody should do that if it's a pulling stuff out of a bag type of game. The cubes are fine. My only gripe, honestly, is that these 2 colors are too similar. You know, over here, this is a much brighter blue and this is almost a white. But when you get to the cubes, those 2 colors are just too similar to easily tell at a glance which one is which. I don't know how that passed playtesting, but it's fine. Ideally, this board right here, and this is more like a deluxe version of Healthy Heart Hospital that may come out someday. Ideally, this board would be dual layered, and so it would hold these tokens in place a little better, because this board definitely is at risk of being bumped and everything could just go into disarray. You could probably get it back, but there's a lot of stuff just that needs to sit in its very proper position on this board, so don't play it on a shaky table. That's all I've got to say. But other than that, the components are fine. The box is way bigger than it needs to be, in my opinion, so I'm hoping that this means they are planning some expansions, because the box feels very empty once you have punched all your tokens and stored everything back in the box. But for what this game does, it's a cooperative game that you don't really have to think too hard about, but it feels way more than just a family-friendly game night type of game. It feels like there's more to it, but it really is not too heavy of a game. And I love the fact that it's cooperative. We need more cooperative games, in my opinion, which means you could play it solo. So what do I think about this game for solo play? I think it's super easy. I think it's amazing. There really is not a whole lot you need to keep up with from doctor to doctor other than their special abilities. It's very easy to just say, all right, Dr. Nowitz, here we go. I'm going to focus here, here, and here. There could be a little bit of an alpha player problem since you're playing cooperatively. If they knew, what all your special abilities were and say, all right, you go to this ward this turn, I'm going to go here this turn, you bounce around from these two. Obviously, playing solo, you don't ever have to worry about the alpha player. You are the only player. But the game doesn't feel overbearing having to play 2 players or even 3. I've even seen people play 4 and be perfectly fine with playing 4. And they change the amount of actions you're taking for each player. So essentially, you're still taking 8 to 10 actions and 2 administrative actions, no matter how many players you're playing with. So if you were to play 4 players, each player is only taking 2, I think. This almost feels like a beat your own score game because there really is just a, hey, how did you do? But the game is surviving the 6 rounds, surviving all of these patients flooding into your waiting room and not being able to heal patients and people ending up in the cemetery. And oh my gosh, how am I going to survive all this? Just like Terraforming Mars was essentially a beat your own score game. If you could see how many points you got at the end of whatever it was, 15 rounds. But at the end of the day, for a solo player, the challenge was to terraform Mars within the allotted rounds. Like it was either 20 or 15, something like that. That was the challenge. If you did that, you were successful, and I never cared about how many points I had at the end of the game. So same for this one. If I am successful, I am successful. I don't worry about how well I did as far as profit margin I had accumulated at the end of the game. So this looks complex, but it's really not. I think there just needs to be space for everything. They gave it all its own space, and it's a very colorful board. So I think this is a very good game that you could introduce to other players. Hold their hand a little bit, help them make some decisions, and then just let them run with it. Because as a doctor, you only have 2 choices: heal a patient or move a patient. And at that point, it's which patient do you heal and where do you move them to. But it's not a complex rule set. It's not a complex set of actions. Honestly, just knowing what to do with the black cubes is the only set of rules in the game that kind of changes depending on what you're doing and when you're drawing them, that you'd have to keep up with. So as long as one person knows what they're doing, I would highly recommend this for a lighter group. I would not necessarily recommend this as a kid's game because, again, it can be a little morbid. People die. So I don't think I'm going to rush off and teach my kids Healthy Heart Hospital, but I think it's perfectly fine with adults at any skill level. So I'm giving the newest 3rd edition of Healthy Heart Hospital my full approval on the Meeple Marathon. I will be doing a complete how to play video with a brief playthrough of a couple rounds. So if you are interested in that, keep an eye out for that on the channel. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon. That is coming soon. This is brand new from Sparkworks Games and is distributed by Tabletop Tycoon. So you can go to the website in the description below to find this game and pick it up. I believe it's even $10 off right now since it just launched. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.